Please rise for invocation by Pastor Ken Sharp of High Point Pentecostal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord, I love you today, and I thank you for this opportunity to gather. I thank you for the freedoms that you've allowed us to enjoy in this country. And God, I'm asking for special things tonight, that you would give mercy and peace to our community. Lord, those that are sick, I ask that you would give strength to and help us, Lord, to navigate the uncharted waters. And God, I ask for peace to come into this room right now with all of the elected officials. Give us wisdom, give us understanding, God, we can be fair and just in everything that we do. And let us always have our community in mind. Give each one of them strength tonight. I pray for blessings upon each of them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here. Thank you.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. We have a quorum, both physical and virtual. Consent agenda, public comments on consent agenda items only. There being none, may I have a motion for agenda approval?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Let's do this. Let's call the roll since some of us are virtual.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. May I have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
To clarify, that's a motion for approval for the consent agenda and a proper second. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. That brings us to citizen participation non-agenda. Anybody in the audience? There being none, we have one person who wants to participate virtually.
Yes. Give me 1 second. Robert, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect. You are up. Go ahead with your 3-minute public participation comments.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. With the anticipated opening up of the economy, those of us who are elderly and/or have underlying conditions will need personal protective equipment in order to participate in the economy. In particular, the average person needs gloves, masks, and sanitizer, which are currently not even available for the general public in the marketplace. The federal government's efforts so far have been aimed at medical equipment and personal protective equipment for first responders. I ask that the City Council consider some sort of proclamation that asks our governor and our congressional representatives to press the federal administration to expand their use of their war production authority to increase the supply of personal protective equipment for the general public. I also recommend that you disseminate this proclamation to the county and other local city governments in the hope that they will join this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you calling in.
My pleasure.
Robin, were there any other?
That was it.
Okay. Brings us to council comments. Let's start on the virtual end of things with Chase Tremont.
I don't have any comments tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Marilyn Ford.
I would just thank our residents for the way they've complied and really followed the prescriptives of the city as well as the governor and the president. I would encourage them to continue to follow those prescriptives so that we can I'll be healthy and not have a return to this. And again, I would encourage everybody to support our local businesses. At this time, they've really had a difficult time, particularly the small businesses. So working together, we can make sure that all of our community businesses thrive, as well as our residents. Thank you.
Scott Stiltner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things, but one of which will be a bit lengthy. I wanted to make sure that everybody on council knew that I have engaged the city manager and the city attorney to look into an ongoing issue that we're having down at our Causeway Park and boat ramp facility. Probably for the last 10 years, if maybe not a little longer, we have seen a steady growth and interest in folks who want to be able to use that facility down there for boating, fishing, walking the bridge. It's an exercise area, picnicking, all that good kind of stuff, which I think is great. It's absolutely a fabulous and beautiful facility, all the way from basically catfish all the way to the other side of the bridge. Popularity has grown as the community has grown. The one thing that's not growing down there is available parking. We are extremely limited in that area. Over the last, I would say, 5 years, we have seen a consistent issue with parking on primarily the weekends, but also holidays, and sometimes even just in the summer months, it can be a Monday through Sunday issue. And so kind of what's going on is we only have a limited amount of parking down there. We have a tremendous amount of signage that regulates that. And law enforcement goes down and does their role in enforcement and writes a lot of tickets, which they need to be doing their job, and that's something that I definitely support. What I'm concerned about is, have we looked at that area down there as with a plan of how do we maximize? Have we truly maximized all the available parking? I sent Robin some pictures she's got for those that maybe aren't as familiar and haven't seen it in a while. I think she's either going to put them up on the screen or email them to you guys. But what we have seen in the last couple of years is that by about 8 a.m., maybe 8:30, all parking is completely full on the weekends when the weather's pretty nice. And so what's happening is folks just go ahead and park in areas that are not regulated for parking, and willingly accepting these citations, which I think is about a $30 fine, almost as if it's just a parking fee, so to speak. So the citations themselves are not curbing folks away from not parking. They're basically just looking at it as, well, we know we're going to get a citation. It's going to cost $30, and that's the price of me getting down here a little bit late and not getting one of the marked spots. So I have asked Jake to look at what options do we have to truly maximize all of the available area down there to become parking. And Robin, I think, put some of these pictures up on the screen now, and you're going to see there a lot of it's pretty bad. I mean, people are parking. This is actually, can you back up one picture there on that one? This is actually a travel through lane from a couple weeks ago. And if you kind of look in the center, you see that you can't travel through. And the reason it's like that is because cars, single vehicle cars, are parking in boat trailer spots, which are now causing these folks not to have a place after they've already launched their boat. When they come back around the parking spot's been taken up by a single vehicle, and you get this kind of a configuration, which this isn't good, because now emergency vehicles can't even get through the single lane, and now most of those folks are blocked in from even being able to get their vehicles. Some of the other pictures, Robin, if you want to scroll through that, you'll see folks are parking on both sides of the access roads off to the curb or the edge of the road. They're not really obstructing each other, and it's actually working out, if you can call it that, pretty well. But this is now this is the daily routine on the weekends. This is not something that's a once every now and then. This is pretty much all the time. Here's one vehicle that's actually parked in a drainage swale. Here's a couple of vehicles. These vehicles are parking side by side. Here's one that's parked up on a curbed median adjacent to a stop sign and several palm trees. I don't even know how you get that
Creative
trailer, but he did, and he got his ticket. You can see the yellow ticket there. Anyhow, my point is that I think what we need to do is there's this old school of thought, like when you build something, you don't put in all the sidewalks. You wait and see where the dead grass is going to be, and that lets you know where people want to walk through and they want to travel, and you add sidewalks there. Daytona State College has mastered that. And what I've asked Jake to do is take a look with his staff and his team and see what options they may have for us. Is there any other area we can maximize down there to go ahead and open up and make it parking? I don't really see what's happening down there right now that anybody really cares about having a landscaped grass area that would be more suitable for parking at this point. Also looking at, I've asked them to look at an option to make a certain portion of the north side, I'll call it the flat span of the causeway, to see if we can create a one-way section that would allow for quite a bit of additional single vehicle parking. And I think that actually would work pretty good. I'll let Jake speak to that and tell you guys what he has found, but I just want to bring it to all council's attention so that we can be looking at this and see what can we do to maximize the availability for our residents. Because I do, and I think all of us want our residents, as many as possible, to be able to go down and use it. The reality of this is absolutely, there will never be enough parking. There will always be a challenge to parking because there's no room to expand parking down there. You're pretty much limited to what we have available. But I'd like to look and see how we truly maximized it. If not, what can we do? What would that look like for us? Have that discussion. And then once we've maximized that, we need to figure out the enforcement aspect of this. We need to hold people accountable that if they're parking in areas that aren't designated, I don't know that a $30 fee is going to curb that if that's our interest. We're going to have to look at that. The other thing is if I don't think there's going to be significant capital cost here, but if there are some costs, can we use those citation revenues for those? So I've asked Matt to begin looking at that and see how can that revenue that's generated be utilized to help maintain the facility, maybe increase some things. And then lastly, I know this is a lot, but lastly, Jake, if you can weigh in on the possibility or the idea of using some of the other properties that the city has up in the Riverwalk area, at least in the short term. What can we create up there where we could direct folks to say, hey, listen, we've maximized everything here, but you can go up to this area. Yeah, you might have a walk back or need to get an Uber back or what have you. But if you park here, you're going to either get towed or the fines are going to be significant because we've got to still have some sense of reason and order down there. So anyhow, I've asked Jake to look into that. I know he and his staff has already done that. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to take a moment and let him give you guys some feedback because we've kind of been having a little bit of discussion for the last couple of days. Catch you up on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the 21st of April, Susan and Councilman Stiltner and I had chatted about this a couple weeks ago. So Susan Lavallo, Lan and Ronnie from Public Works and Utilities, and Tim Berman and Chief Grimaldi went out there. Apparently I wasn't invited, but they all got together and discussed this a couple weeks ago, April 21st. There are currently between 81 and 84, I think I counted 84, but between 81 and 84 boat trailer parking spaces down at the causeway. There are 41 single spaces at the causeway, 4 disabled, and then the location for the police trailer for the police boat. We discussed a little bit about making the road one way on the flat span, and for FDOT reasons, we don't think this is viable right now, but we'll look into it more and discuss that with them. But near-term fixes, we did feel that if we removed the no parking signs in a majority of the places and made improvements to protect the mangroves where there are some on the north side, we could allow people to park in the manner they are now. We're a little concerned that if we start to improve the grassy areas where they park now, that that will increase the impervious areas, which would cause a St. John's or a water management issue. So we think we would just remove the signs and allow them to park. Some areas would stay no parking to allow for the vehicles to turn, not to impede. If you can imagine, a car that parks up on the little end there, up on the curb, and its trailer's hanging out. You've been to Lowe's before and seen it, a Ford F-350 that parks and you can't get in or out. It's kind of tough. So we'd still have some no parking areas. We feel that would generate an additional 32 trailer spaces. Keeping in mind, and Scott kind of mentioned it, that doing this may cause the grass and vegetation to die, and the beautification of the park as you know it may decline significantly. Then we would also go ahead and entertain discussing, and Matt can give you some details on what we'd have to do, but upping the fee to about between $75 and $100 to make it a little more painful to park illegally and so blatantly. By the way, one of the things that the mayor mentioned in a casual conversation earlier is, why don't we just put a police officer or a VIP like we used to down there full time to warn people? So I asked that. I said, why don't we just put somebody down there? And come to find out, by and large, the parks people, the code enforcement people, the VIPs, and the police officers get treated so poorly down there that nobody wants to work down there. And the being VIPs is voluntary, so nobody's going to volunteer. And when I got police that don't want to pull overtime duty because they just don't want to get treated like crap down there, then that's probably the reason why we don't want to do that. And then we could also move some of the trailers, overflow trailers, to the city parking area, the dirt parking area across from Aunt Catfish's. And in the short term, until we come up, we might come up with a vision tonight, but until we come up with a plan for the Riverwalk section, Matt Jones and I did drive the Halifax Drive between Dunlawton and Herbert, Herbert, not Ocean. And there's probably room for another 40 or 50 trailers there, should that be. We could bid out for a valet service. We could do it internally, but I suggest we either do the Hoof It campaign or the allow Uber Lyft people to drive both ways. If it's $30 right now for a ticket and they're willing to pay, I'm sure people would be willing to pay $7 to $10 for a valet via Uber or Lyft to and from Halifax Drive to the ramp for those that don't want to walk. I know Councilman Stiltner, being a boat owner with a low draft boat, has also walked over to the jet ski ramp and walked out into the shallow water and hopped aboard his boat with a different captain on board without getting too wet. So that option's available too. But what we don't want is people to park illegally. Recently, we've got about 141 ticket payers through the finance department. As you well know, our job is not to generate revenue. Our job is to have people follow the law. So we'll do everything we can to get the most amount of spaces. But we can go ahead with some of this now, removing the no parking signs, making sure the vegetation is safe, and just allowing it to go from there. But above and beyond that, the second and third order effects we'll have to do some research on and execute. And I'll pass it to Matt for the violation thoughts.
So we can create new violations down there to increase the fees. Right now they're at $30, and that's because the statute 316 provides a cap for your standard parking violations, but that doesn't prevent the city from legislating outside of that, those uniform traffic codes
and creating maybe a boat parking violation, that we can create a heightened fee, and that can go up to $100. I don't know if you want to go all the way up to the max right now, but that's certainly on the menu, up to anything from 30 up to 100 that you want to do. The other thing to keep in mind as we talked about capital improvements is that this is a leased property. The city leases this from FDOT. So any kind of capital improvements, any improvements at all, really, we'd have to go through the FDOT process. So just kind of factor that in, that may be an additional time period to gain the approval we would need to do this the right way.
Comments, anyone? Let's start with Marilyn.
I would make a
Got
motion.
her hand raised.
I would make a motion that the city adopt a Port Orange City boat ramp parking violation fee of $100 to be instituted effective June 15th, 2020.
Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Can we get there?
We have a motion. We have a second. Discussion.
Yeah, so what I would be looking to be able to, before, like I was saying before, I'm okay at some point going this route that Marilyn's talking about, once Jake and his team have been able to evaluate all of the opportunities to maximize all of that and see what that's going to look like. So
We'll be able to maximize the spaces at Causeway before June 15th.
Maybe I'll just to input. I know we got a motion on the floor, so I wanted to just speak to the motion. June 15th. So the May 19th meeting has been closed. It's going to take we're going to have to create this by ordinance, right? So 2 readings. So we could go first meeting, second meeting in June. So I think second meeting in June is what?
June 16th.
16th is. I know we're off a day there, but is that doable? 16th better? Can we amend the motion maybe, or?
Well, it wouldn't be able to happen until after we do that, so it would have to be the 17th, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so we can adopt 16 and then go into effect. I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that June 15th was probably not.
Unless we have a special meeting
Yeah,
with that second hearing.
yeah, and appreciate that, Matt. And so I'm sure Marilyn will go ahead, Marilyn. I see she's got her hand up.
Well, I would agree to the 17th, but to Scott's point, he wants to see the improvements before we do the fine. Councilman Stiltner described a problem that is current and ongoing, and we need to address it. And taking the approach that we're going to do everything to accommodate parking and delay doing anything for the miscreants who really don't care what the posted signs say is unpalatable to me. Beyond that, I would just offer the observation. I think we want to provide some parking. I hesitate to go full scale in other areas of Riverwalk or other places because we haven't even discussed where this fits in city priorities. And I think there are things such as ball fields, other things that we've known for a long time. And yes, we're victims of our success, but the reality is the users of the boat ramp flagrantly violate what are posted situations. And so I think we need to take immediate action to increase the fees. If an increase doesn't work, then the next thing I would suggest is towing vehicles that can't seem to abide by our laws, because the reality is city government can only do so much.
Marilyn, would you like to amend your motion or withdraw it to change the date to June 17th?
I will amend my motion to June 17th, 2020. It becomes effective.
Do I have a second on the amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. Before we have further discussion, all in favor on the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Chase, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Did you vote aye?
On the amendment.
On the amendment, did you vote aye?
I did.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure since you're virtual. Okay, that's the amendment on the main motion as far as to do that. Further discussion and facts.
So, I'm sorry, yeah. if I can
No,
finish
go
up.
ahead.
So anyway,
ahead,
back
Scott,
to what we were talking about. I think Maryland's headed in the right direction on this. I'm not sure I'm ready to do that part right now until I've seen what we can do to maximize but I very much share the same concern that she's got. And to that, one of the other things that Jake and I talked about, I think he maybe is looking at, is some of the violations are suitable for a fine. Some of them are suitable to be towed. I mean, some of what we have seen down there, when you block a travel lane that's going to prevent an emergency vehicle from coming through, or you are parked across traffic control devices,
Or backed into over a sidewalk.
or backed in over a sidewalk. We even had two vehicles, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were parked on the bridge breakdown lane. And so, and I know that some of that's going to take some communication between maybe Matt and the CM and the police chief and trying to identify what constitutes somebody's got to get towed versus, we can write a citation, whether it's $75 or $100 or whatever. But, I'd like to see a little bit more on what that is going to be about.
Well, they're going to have some time because you're going to have
Yeah.
2 more bites at this
True.
before first and second reading.
And that's not a policy issue. That's a execution issue. If I can tow, we'll tow. That's nothing that needs to come to council, right?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, as we were talking through that was one of the things that we talked about as we were kind of brainstorming, and just kind of a practical consideration is, towing boat and trailers for legal parking, and those made sense. That was kind of a limited towing approach, but we started using towing, a little bit more often. Then you may end up having some backup there. The boat out is not there, and
Well, towing somebody out of a parking lot's one thing, but when you're parked on the right of way,
sure. And one of the things when I heard, the single vehicle parked in a boat trailer, that another prime that could be.
Some of the solutions Jake pointed out, I'm good with that. That doesn't cost us anything. It provides even if it's a temporary solution, it provides a solution, and it does help benefit.
We have some other unused properties over there that if it gathers momentum,
Yeah.
we can kind of clear a little bit of that property possibly, and it's a little bit farther, but if Uber, Lyft, or a valet is doing it, what's the difference between a
Right.
mile and a mile and 3/4 anyhow?
Right.
Getting carted back and forth, so we'll look at that.
That's all I got.
on this one, Drew, comments?
Yeah, I don't disagree that we need to have an increased fine. I think 100 is too much. Perhaps doubling it, 50 or 60 dollars. I don't know that I'd go right to 100, but can I ask a question of Matt? If we can charge a violation fee for parking, whatever ordinance, could we not turn those into paid parking spaces? That might send some people off. You know what I mean?
So-
They might not want to pay to park and they might go to another boat ramp.
That's been discussed before, and council has not been amenable to that.
They haven't been, but it might be an option now, and not some outrageous prices, but clearly we could have single vehicle parking.
It's gonna add revenue, but it's not gonna stop the
And when you run
miscreants,
out of
Marilyn.
spaces
It's not gonna
that
stop
they pay
there.
for, you still have the same problem with people parking.
Well, then, then you have the increased thing, but that might be a deterrent to move some of the vehicles out of there. And then the other thing I had, like the off-site parking up in the Riverwalk area, even with Uber or Lyft, turn them around, are we not going to have a backup problem? Somebody backs their boat down there, ties it off to the dock. Now they got to take their truck down there. And then, so now you got a 10-minute area where somebody's on the boat ramp and the boat's not moving.
That may very well happen. That's something we're gonna have to look at.
Option, but we haven't had support of that pay for parking model yet.
I mean, that
And Drew, I'll just say
might be
that-
where we need to end
Yeah,
up.
and to your last question, what they typically do, because some are doing that now.
Okay.
I've done that. But what they do is they tie up on the outside.
Outside,
So they're
yeah.
not actually in the ramp, the launch area. They're tied up on the outside.
But if you got, I could just see
Well,
somebody
sometimes
tying
you'll have
up
two or
there.
th- But sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 boats tied together. I mean, it's
Or they-
interesting how well everybody does work together at that point.
Or if there aren't any other spots to tie off and they're by themselves, or they don't have that second operator in the boat where they can back up and when they see them, come get them at the dock, they are gonna tie off in that spot. so they
So,
can park their car.
so we're speculating about things that we haven't seen happen yet that we can control.
True.
Not
I
control,
just see
but
that being a little bit of a problem.
it
I
could
mean,
be.
I like the idea of moving some of the vehicles out of there, but I can see a little bit of an issue with it.
Well,
But
there's a
yeah,
little bit of an issue now.
I know. So I don't know what the answer is, but I can't support 100, but I would support an increased fine for sure.
So I don't know what the limit of a boater is, but a guy that's getting $700-800 for a day on the water, probably, I don't know what his I don't know what his bar is for paying that bill,
Yeah.
but $30 is an easy day for him. $50 might be an easy day for him too. I don't know what the limit is. 100 is definitely tough for a day out on the water.
But they can't all be charter boats too.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
$30, $50 might be doable for a day on the water. 100 would probably hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
It's gotta hurt.
Chase, we haven't heard from you yet. Questions, comments?
No, I don't know that I'm interested in a rate increase, a fine increase at this point. It's not a bad suggestion. I'm not there yet. But I do appreciate the discussion. I appreciate Scott bringing this up. I can't tell you how many inquiries I received from a lot of folks and a lot of complaints about what's going on down there. So I'll be interested in seeing what staff comes up with and I think that was a good term to use on how to maximize the available parking down there. So
What can I ask a question? What do you want us to come up with? Is the intent that 32 additional spaces will make the parking violations go away? Is that what you're hoping?
I don't know, frankly. I'm not as familiar with that area with the down there. I've been on a boat maybe 3 times, so I wouldn't presume to give any advice. I'd like to see what you guys come up with.
Well, I don't think I'm going to come up with any. I guess my question is, what would you like us to come up with? What are you looking for?
Well, I heard discussion earlier about maximizing the area in which to park, whether or not that removes signs that allows people to park.
That will result in 32 trailerable parking spots. That's what that's going to result in.
Is that
Substantial.
That's a big increase.
I mean, I like that. I mean, is there an issue
Got
with it that we have?
That's about a 40% capacity increase.
I think
I think Chase might be talking about cumulatively whether or not like DOT is going to allow you to add those one lane with single spots, whether or not we can.
the one lane with single spots is going to be a longer term issue,
Okay.
but
And then what about a plan to try to promote available parking at these off-site?
we're going to provide signage to say there's off-site parking. So we can get that all done
Yeah.
before June 15th.
Gotcha.
And you guys can shoot down second hearing if you're happy with what's going on, or extend it to July. But I think Council Member Ford brings up a good point, is $100 for people who are breaking the law. The way not to pay $100, you can tell your friends this, that taught you about it, is to not
True.
break the law.
True.
And we're providing them additional options not to break the law. So, you know where I stand with that. Being nice to people breaking the law is not my bag. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry I keep on seeing Council Member
I got
Ford
another-
raising her hand.
Marilyn, go ahead.
Question, when, Jake, I just want to make sure when you say you could add about 32 spaces, will the city be following the same criteria for parking spaces that we require of commercial businesses and developments? Because I don't want to have us use, if you will, a more lenient standard when community development with other things are doing something else. I think that looks sort of wrong. So when you talk about adding parking spaces, have you looked at it from, the community development section of what is permissible for that area?
Yes, because, and I say that out of trust, Marilyn, because Tim Berman was out there with the team. He would have brought it up and said something. I will double check with him, but I'm reasonably assured that it's ours to do. If we are shrinking them, then we might have a problem. But by adding them, I think we're actually better off
Okay.
from a zoning perspective. But I'll get that answer back to you. I think yes. So Tim Berman says spaces would meet code.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Any other comments or questions on, now remember, what we're voting for is to bring an ordinance forward. If you don't like the fine amounts, those things can be debated when we bring the ordinance forward. But right now, Marilyn?
My motion was very specific to $100. And it gave
And
a
that's what the,
date for implementation. If you don't like it, vote it down and somebody come back with a different ordinance. But I'm not backing off $100. That's my proposal.
You need time to think about it.
That's first hearing.
yeah, well, certainly.
I think Marilyn's pretty firm in her.
Are you sure?
she's sure.
So, I mean, at first reading, that's what we're deciding.
And can I say something further?
Yeah.
Jake, I'm good with the maximizing of the spaces. 30, 32, whatever you can find down there and doing it right and doing that on this, on the one picture where the truck was on the grass over the curbing, perhaps a couple of 4x4 posts or ballards to not allow that. Is that something we could do to block that space off and make it clear that they're going to ignore no parking sign, but if we put something there to prevent, is that something we can do in a couple of areas?
I instead of, I can put ballards up all over the city where there's curbs and people shouldn't park, but how about we look at between first and second reading, we look at the ticket and towing, and you tow one or two people, and especially if they got a truck and a trailer, they won't make that mistake too often.
Yeah, because that's going to require 2 tow trucks, right?
Well, or more, I don't know. So
okay,
we'll look into options for those areas that remain no parking.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
no,
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. I'm recording 3-2.
Correct.
Scott, what else you got?
Just wanted a quick positive comment that I mentioned to Jake before the meeting. Great job by Parks and Rec employees all the time when they're out and about interacting with the public. We had one today. Jake, I don't have my notes, so the name does escape me if you want to mention it, but we had one today that interacted with a resident from another city that happened to find themselves stranded in Port Orange. And it was just really a great thing to hear that our city folks will kind of identify that, engage these folks, and stay and help them. And this particular lady had a very young, severely autistic, low functioning child with her. And it just really, she was uneasy and she wasn't familiar with our city and the area and stuff like that. And had a Parks and Rec person go out of their way to make her feel comfortable, go get some water for them while they're waiting
Nick
on a
Bonello.
tow truck. What was the name?
Nick Bonello.
Nick Bonello. So good job, Nick Bonello. And just as we would expect anybody in the city of Port Orange. And it's just always great to hear those kind of stories. And so great job. That's all I got.
Drew,
I don't have anything tonight.
you saved all your time for Scott?
Yeah.
Thanks for yielding.
Yeah, that was a lengthy discussion.
Jake, under phase 1 with restaurants and outdoor seating, where no outdoor seating currently exists and people are improvising, what are we doing? What are we allowing them to do? And what's the process for that?
We currently have a process posted on our Facebook site and our website. Depending on where you are and where you're situated, you have to get owner permission. You can put your seating out as long as it meets the phase 1 guidelines. If you're using tents, anything bigger than a 10 by 10, you need a permit. And just contact community development, and they'll set you up and get you going as quick as they can. We posted, I think we posted on Sunday how to do it for the opening on Monday. It took me a little while to get the executive order in place, but Tim Berman and his team are ready to set any restaurateur up with what they need to get going.
So if a restaurateur wanted to do outdoor seating where they've got ample room to do it and they follow the guidelines, do they need to get a permit? Or is it only because of the tent?
Yeah, no, I believe they need to get a permit regardless, and it's temporary.
It's a temporary permit.
Yep. So they can call 386-506-5601 if they have any questions whatsoever about it.
And if we run across somebody that, for whatever reason, didn't realize it being a temporary situation anyway, that they needed to get a permit, how are we handling that?
I don't think we've run into it yet, but we will,
Educate.
if we see it, yeah, we'll definitely educate. It's we're trying to get our economy going. We're not trying to bust people.
That's my point. I don't want to
No, we're
bust anybody in the chops and
No.
shut them down, but at the same time,
I am working with staff to try to get as many people up to as much of a percent of working again that they can possibly handle that's within the phase 1 guidelines from the governor. There are a few people that I mean, he reported from Tampa at a hair salon. So you know how important it is to get hair salons back up when the governor does a press conference from a hair salon. They're not there yet. I imagine he's going to be at a gym before the end of the week. But until that, everybody else that we can get moving, we're going to get moving and get them to the best capacity that we can get them within the phase 1 guidelines. So we will work with anybody.
all right, and we're turning those permits over pretty quick.
I think as we speak.
Yeah, Mayor, just to plug it,
Yeah.
I also want to say it's free. It's there is no fee for application or to get
Right.
the permit.
Well, gee, Matt, you just stole my thunder for my next question. Thank you, sir. All right, so, and that's kind of the point of that, is that I know we have a process, but I want to make sure that it's streamlined, quick and easy so that we can get people working, get businesses moving again.
Yes, sir.
All right. Special awards, reports, recognition, proclamations. Item 10, report from Capital Sports and Cypress Head Golf Course. Mr. Bob Duquette, the gloved wonder.
How we doing? First off, this is really strange.
Your hair is longer than mine,
Oh
man.
my God, I need a haircut so bad. It's awful. Bob Duquette.
I think I got a pair of scissors.
My wife has offered, but I've kind of refused. Bob Duquette, General Manager of Cypress Head Golf Course. So I'm reporting on the golf course operations. First off, before we get started, I'd like to send a big thank you first off to all of our first responders in the city, all the healthcare professionals for everything that they have done during these challenging times. It's been certainly uncharted. I'm also like to publicly and personally thank my staff at the golf course for all of their hard work and being on the front lines of sanitizing, sanitizing all the areas of the golf course, as well as following all the CDC guidelines, and still offering some spectacular customer service during this unprecedented time. The report that I have is actually for the month of March, and essentially our revenues for March surprisingly finished much higher than our projected budget for the month. Our payroll was lower, our pro shop revenue was higher, and our operational expenses were slightly lower as well from the budgeted amount. Month of March is actually our 6th month in the fiscal year, and year to date our revenues are just slightly a little bit lower than projected, and retail sales are definitely higher at this time. Of course, as you all know, beginning in mid-March, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused multiple cancellations, rescheduling of tournament groups for the remainder of March, as well as all through April at this point. So for the month of March, we estimated a loss of about $7,000 revenue just for just groups alone that decided that we certainly couldn't hold them there for golf. And during that time, we've implemented and followed every CDC guidelines, cleaning procedures, golf course operations, maintenance, everything from that point is going through for what was described for us. During the departments and stuff, one of our high priority items has definitely been to evaluate our irrigation system, which we've mentioned before. It's certainly almost 30 years old at this point. It's been troublesome. We've recently had to install a new hydraulic pressure tank, motors, failures of the previous components themselves, and we continue to have a lot of issues with sprinkler heads and satellite control boxes, which we're working with our Parks and Rec, Sue Lavallo and Kevin Sweat, to try to move forward on a process for improving that. We've been following all of our regular maintenance procedures on our cart fleets, and we've been registering battery amperage and mileage. Unfortunately, due to this pandemic guidelines, we've been doing, not unfortunately, but we've been issuing individual carts to everyone. And our fleets, it basically multiplies the amount of mileage and battery use amperage on these carts. So they're getting a lot more use. In fact, some of the carts are going out 2 and 3 times during the course of the day by the time we can kind of recycle them through.
How long does it take to recharge a cart?
Roughly about 10 hours. The carts are good for 36 hours on a run. So they can do 36 holes, I should say. At that point, they start to get really sluggish, but it burns the batteries up quite a bit at that point. So it's just part of the process that we need to make sure that we're maintaining all of our guidelines. Our leagues basically were going very well until about mid-March. And at that point, since the pandemic came about, everything's been suspended. So we know we are maintaining the 6-foot guidelines and no more than 10 people. Really have limited the amount of people that are actually in the golf shop. We've been taking reservations with their prepay. So we've done everything necessary to make sure that everybody's as safe as possible. Our summary for March for the course, overall golf rating was a 9, with our course rating being an 8.0 and our service rating as 9.7. One of the other platforms for Golf Now gave us a section where they had a total reviews of 400 reviews with an average score of 4.1, which is really good, with a recommended percentage of 91%. So that's been really awesome. We're really happy with seeing that aspect itself. And with this pandemic, we've been following our guidelines established by the CDC, and we're relying on resources, of course, from Kemper Sports, as well as direction from the city of Port Orange. So we'll remain in effect. We'll do everything necessary required to make sure that our staff, but also the public, is safe as far as golf goes. Surprisingly enough, we've been pretty busy. I guess more people, they've been playing. No bars, no restaurants, no beaches, no movie theaters, no haircuts, no anything else. So it's been really busy at the golf course. The good news is the course right now is in incredible condition. So I invite you all at some point to either come out and visit and say hello, or drive around, or wait for a little bit more time, whatever you feel most comfortable with. The one thing we did notice is we have seen a lot more Port Orange residents. People who had never played there before have now said, this is incredible, this is wonderful. So we're hoping to maintain that status, the fact that they're aware, and a lot more use for Port Orange residents, which has been great. Bad news, of course, is we've had a little bit some extra increase in labor costs, just to keep everything operating the way it should be, and for the safety aspect itself. And plus, of course, like I mentioned earlier, as far as our cart usage because of the individual requirements. We've stopped all leagues, all activities. Basically, again, we're following as much as possible to make sure everybody is safe. So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions for me.
Pretty good quarter, though.
It was wonderful, actually.
Yeah.
I can't understand, other than we are probably a really good operation, and no one's the beaches, and I didn't realize the boats and stuff had so much issues down there, but I can imagine that as well.
Can we ramps and golf courses?
Boat trailers over?
That would be better, a pretty big Uber cost, I imagine.
Let's start up here with Drew. No, I mean, it's good that what's occurring is pushing people to golf and doing other things. And, maybe it'll like you said, reignite some of the passion for golf and do that. So, out of something bad, maybe something good comes. If the course is in good shape and they're happy, that we're going to get into the rainy season, and we know that, they're not going to play golf in the rain. So, as long as it keeps going, and, it's just, like I said, something good, the business of the golf course is coming out of something bad.
Right.
So.
I've seen more people now that I've never seen before. Of course, unfortunately, some of them are not golfers, so there's a little bit of an effect of that. But they're coming out and
maybe
they're
they
enjoying
become
themselves,
golfers,
and they know what's there now.
Maybe they like losing 30 golf balls and they want to do it again next weekend.
Yeah.
Lessons will be available.
Yeah.
Scott?
No, good report. I would encourage whatever we can do now that you're seeing a lot of these new faces. Figure out a way to keep them.
Yep.
Keep coming back. But the leagues, is there any way? I mean, I'd love to get the leagues back, but is there any way for them not to do? I get it when they have that whole little bit of a meet and greet at the beginning when they go out, but once they're out, they're fine. So is there any way to avoid a little bit of that?
The way it's worked out, it's actually been pretty good because everybody's been really adapting and working well together. So where we used to do a shotgun start of maybe 50, 60 people at one time, and they would all congregate there. Now we have set them into tee times. And so we've had to actually block off tee times just so we can have enough carts. But now instead of everybody going at 8:30, they're coming in and it's a 7:30, 7:45, or 50-minute increments. So they're all playing, they're all seeing each other, but they're all staggered.
Got it.
So they're not all together.
So the leagues are playing, they're just not having that congregation portion.
Correct.
Like it. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Very good.
Marilyn?
Yep.
Hi.
All right.
This is so strange.
Chase?
Jason behind you.
Appreciate the report as well. I'm glad that we've stayed open throughout this time, giving people an out, be able to do that. So happy with the report. I've been wanting to get out there to come play. At the very least, I have a new reason to come out to see your hair that everyone's talking about. I can't see it from here, but I'll look forward to seeing that, Bob.
Yeah, well, it'll be cut shortly, I hope.
Well, you never know. I tell you what, it is nice.
Can the camera show Bob's hair?
No.
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 Back to business.
You actually can see it from here.
Focus on the business, please.
Okay.
I'm just going to say that it's nice to have the numbers, and I'm really surprised because I knew there were a couple tournaments that I was going to participate in. I haven't been to the golf course yet in 2020 that have been canceled, and yet you've been able to maintain these numbers. And certainly, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've got a customer service opportunity.
Yep.
Hopefully, we can do everything that we can to maximize that for the long-term health of the golf course, and certainly the short-term mental health of the people using it.
Yeah, we've had multiple. I believe that like the Rotary had a tournament that was always usually a full field red day tournament is always a very popular one. We've had the Lions groups. We've had all of that have all canceled. Unfortunately, from what I hear, the mayor's has been postponed to August. I believe August 22nd. So we'll hopefully have everything operational with no restrictions at that point.
You're going to make me sweat that day.
Yes, you will practice.
Hey, Bob, a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I know that my two boys try to get out there once or twice a week.
Yes.
Are you seeing an uptick in my kids have nothing to do, so they come out and golf. Are you seeing an uptick in youth?
Absolutely. The youth, they're coming out with their parents. The parents
Yeah.
are mostly saying, we have got to get out of the house. We have got to do something. They have got to burn some energy. So yes, we have seen definitely an increase, both with their parents, but also like a lot of the high school kids that are driving or on their own. They've been coming out to play. They've been playing a lot in the afternoons. After 3 o'clock, it's perfect weather. A lot of them are just coming out to play. So yes, big increase.
Hopefully it sticks with them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob, if I could, Mayor, if I can just add one more time to Bob, I'm always quick to point out when I hear that the course is not looking well. I do want to point out that some of those same folks that have been very critical in the past have also reached out to let me know that the course is looking good. So I wanted to pass that information on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, our new superintendent has really dedicated himself to really making everything as perfect as possible. We still have some challenges, but again, with the help of Parks and Rec and Sue Lavallo and her team, it's been wonderful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Board appointments, interviews, and reports. Item 11 says advisory committee for the TPO. I do not see Mr. Bobby Ball.
No, He had a written report. It's in there.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that was it.
thank you. Item 12, Golf Advisory Board reappointments. We have 2 names for 3 slots.
No,
3 names.
I think we have 3 now, right?
Yes, I emailed one today.
You're
William
presuming I had a chance to look
Shell.
at my email? Let me take a look. Well, let's see. Well, I will accept, while I'm looking that up, I will accept nominations from the floor to fill the openings.
I'd like to nominate the 2 for reappointment and also nominate the new applicant to appointment for the board.
Second.
You got Screen and Dennis Flesh, along with,
William
here
Shell.
it is,
William
Will-
Shell.
yeah.
William Shell.
Let me just make sure I'm following along. 3 positions open, 2 positions open,
There are
There are
3 total openings
and
right
3
now.
people.
You
Yeah,
had one
John.
person that John did not want to be
John
reappointed.
Cameron did not want to be reappointed, so
Okay.
2
William-
reappointments and one
One.
William
new
Shell
fill.
stepped up.
Okay.
So I move to nominate all 3 to be appointed.
Okay. Well, in that case,
Need a second.
I do need a second.
I offered a second.
Give it to
Okay.
Chase.
Chase has offered a second. We have 3 nominations for 3 openings. Are there any other nominations? Nominations are now closed. On Lance Green for reappointment, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
Yes,
Mayor Burnett,
Yes, 5-0. On Dennis Flesh for reappointment, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
yes,
Mayor Burnett,
Yes. And Mr. William Shell for appointment.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian,
yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. We have a golf board, a full golf board again. Item 13 on the regular agenda, Riverwalk visioning. Discussion. Who's setting the tone for that?
Tim. No.
Tim,
So, today, we would like to have a brief discussion on the Riverwalk area and get council's thoughts on what we would like to do on the corner. In the past, we have talked and long held the position that mixed use was the way we wanted to go. We've talked to multiple developers over the past 2.5 years. And most recently, you talked to some folks and one-on-ones, and they kind of described to us, me first, and then you all individually, that mixed use really would not be profitable for a developer. And I have had a hard time finding a developer that wants to come in and do it that way. We've had possible hotel, we've had possible apartment, and we've had possible entertainment like center proposed. Occasionally keep it public and make it a park, make it something like that has been proposed too. So before we work forward or move forward with an invitation to negotiate, we would like to get your thoughts on where you want Riverwalk to be. I'm going to show a few graphics here. Am I going to show a few graphics, Robin? A few, and I'm going to go down so I can manipulate. I think there's more than one, so I'll move back and forth. But I want to show you what is, what could be, what we can do, what we can't do, what our limitations are as they currently are, and then get your thoughts before we move forward. It's the one from Mel. Melanie
Maybe we should look at these
Schmatzer.
graphics earlier.
Yeah, so it's
Robin, is
So-
there a way, is there a way for us to view those images that Jake has shown virtually?
Yes, just give me a moment. It's gonna take me a minute to get everything switched over and.
Yeah.
No
Take your
problem.
time, Rob.
Thank you.
They're the ones in the agenda packet, right?
They are, with the exception of, they're the ones in the agenda packet with the exception of one that I added this morning. We're getting there, folks.
No sweat,
That's fine.
no
At least you
problem.
had it in your pocket.
We added
There you
a
go.
recommendation to
Oh, I did have this.
create a nice gathering area on Maryland's dock. It's going to have some upgrade features, private boat parking, music. What do you think, Marilyn?
Maybe, but there'll probably be $100 parking.
Park under grass.
And
A
Tim's
tiki
on
bar,
team
can we get a tiki bar down there?
too. And she may have just sent it.
Pretty sure that's all.
She may have just sent it to me, and I was supposed to send it to you, but I
She
didn't.
just
So,
send me one today,
all right, that's the one. So
but that's those right there. That's what she sent me.
you're right. You're right. By
Okay.
golly. So we'll start with this one. So here's where we are, and this is the if you can see my my pointer, this is the area between Herbert Street and Dunlawton. The square right here is currently private property. Dave's bicycle shop and the mower shop.
Wouldn't that be Dunkin' Donuts?
Might be Dunkin' Donuts. You're right.
Okay.
Dunkin'
Yeah, those at the
Donuts
corner.
Then Bob.
and Bob's.
Yeah.
So pay particular attention to spots. Number one, right here, that's the midden, the shell pile with two trees sticking out of it right now. And then this area right here is, I think it's called the Mark Antonio property. That was supposed to be a museum, and that was bought with grant money, so it has to be currently protected. That was the Florida Community Trust that helped us buy that, and there are a lot of restrictions on that land. So right now, that land is kind of earmarked and off the list. What we'd like to do is swap this land with the annex, bulldoze the annex, move the grant land over there, and make this one full property. But right now, we're not there. It's been done successfully before, a land swap in Seminole County, but never before in Port Orange. So that would be new to us. So this is the property. Again, somebody's discussed a entertainment center type thing. Like, what's the name of the place there, Mayor, in Orlando? The
Dave and Buster's?
No. It's a
I was gonna say,
bowling
we got one of
alley
those.
restaurant.
Oh,
I forget the name of Strikes or something like that. Alan knows it when he's done. But that was brought to us, and you all got one-on-ones on that.
Splitsville?
Splitsville.
Splitsville.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Splitsville. For those of you that have gone in Orlando, apartment complex right here was most recently provided. What you see here, if you look carefully, is I have overlaid at the request of Councilman Stiltner what the Brandon Center would look like if you choose to keep that park or city land. Here is the Brandon Center building with the Brandon Center parking cut out of it. And here is the Brandon Center building and parking as it is currently all together. So two different options on how you could possibly fit it in there, depending on how you want the building to look. So I believe the property is approximately 17 acres. You've been briefed before. I seek your guidance before we go out for an ITN so we can craft the ITN, which is an invitation to negotiate, which is pretty general in and of itself, but we don't want to string developers along and send them in the wrong direction if that's not the direction we want to go. Of note in the audience, I believe tonight is the last one-on-one developer that you all heard from. And Mr. Tanisowski is listening as well. He is the owner of this property right here, right now. Over to you, counsel.
Before we proceed with anything else, I just want to make sure that we are all in agreement before we talk about anything else, that the linear park portion, we're all good with maintaining the linear park portion all the way to Dunlop.
Absolutely.
I don't see anybody, I see everybody nodding or saying yes.
And that's the area carved out in blue for the public.
Correct.
Riverwalk Phase 3 concept. Again, that is a concept right now.
Right. And with that in mind, I just want to make sure, as we're talking about the vision, that the vision for that portion of it in that section is set, and nobody else wants to change that. We might be marrying it to something, but the vision itself for the linear park to continue all the way down to Dunlawton. So I think we're all in agreement on that. Let's start with Chase. What your thoughts?
Well, frankly, I mean, what I want is not necessarily what the market is gonna want at the end of the day. You know, ideally, you know, I'm not a fan of apartments going down there. I'd rather have more amenities and more services offered that our residents would enjoy, coupled with the park that's already down there. However, at the same time, again, what my wants don't matter when it comes to what the market wants. So I like the idea of a hotel down there. The reality at the end of the day is to bring in restaurants and other shopping centers or whatnot. They're going to want to go where people are at. And oftentimes it's going to be a hotel or people living in that direct vicinity that's going to attract businesses to want to go. Businesses want to go where the people are. So I think without question, you need to have a combination of all of that. I don't know. I remember looking back with the apartment complex with the gentleman that came down before. It didn't seem to have enough room for what I would categorize as more commercial in there that I'd like to see. However, we're sitting on this property well over 2 decades now without any sort of revenue coming in, and no one really enjoying it, other than what we've done with the bike path, the walk path, and the park itself. That's going to get used regardless. It gets used tremendously amount right now by my family, certainly. So whether anything else comes there, this area is already serving the residents of Port Orange in a huge way. So with that said, I want to be cautious of passing over something simply because it's not my ideal project. Because we've got people that are seriously looking at this. That I'm interested in all projects that are wanting to come to the table and ready to put infrastructure in there and make an investment into this city. So we've got folks that are willing to go through with their project. I'm willing to continue the conversation.
Okay, let's mix it up. Drew, why don't you take it?
In looking at it, the Point property, is that still, are they going to move ahead with the restaurant at some point? Or we don't know that for sure?
I'm sure the restaurant will, you're talking about in the Point.
Yes, sir.
They have every intent of building.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
With that being said, the linear park, all the way to Dunlawton, in my opinion, is non-negotiable. The original workshop where we had the public workshop, And I think it predated Maryland and Chase as well. Can't remember. Okay. A big part of that was the linear park. Another part was the mixed use. And I get that that isn't the, that might not be viable or doable.
At this time.
Correct.
We can sit on it for another 20 years. It
No,
might come, it might
well,
come
we
good
can't
again.
because of the CRA and the whole thing. I mean, I get
Right.
that too. In my opinion, I think apartments would be my last thing that I would think about down there. Something like the Brandon Center, yes. The bowling entertainment complex, if that's an option, yes. And be willing to listen to other offers and see if we can't make something work.
Drew, my mic cut out. What did you say regarding the initial project that's being proposed right now? I didn't hear you.
Well, the bowling alley / entertainment complex, if that's viable, that and they're ready, that could be a good spot for that. I did mention that apartments would be my last even choice that I'd consider. Going way back, that was residential, and they were all kicked out of there.
So
The property was bought up over time.
So research, that was a condemned property and they were kicked out because it was condemned. And that's just based on research. I obviously wasn't here. I know Councilman Stiltner was.
I remember it happened on Christmas Eve.
But it was condemned.
Yeah.
We didn't kick them out to do something.
No,
We kicked them out because it was condemned.
But the property was sold and it was
Yep.
condemned, and the building was in bad disrepair.
Right.
I was there too. I get it. But there was one thing I remember from that public workshop that we haven't seen yet, and I don't know if it's in everybody there basically agreed upon a regulation volleyball court somewhere in this project at some point. Would we have a slice of land for a volleyball court?
I don't. So I've
In
heard volleyball and there's a lot of things that were promised. I don't know what is contracted.
Okay.
If it is, then it will be.
Being
If it's not, that was a long time ago.
I know, but I remember at that meeting there was kind of an ask or an outcry, if you will, and the majority of people said yes, we would do a volleyball court, but it would have to be. It's not going to be priority. It's going to be down the road, but there was supposed to be a sliver.
So much room in phase 2.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a sliver preserved for a regulation volleyball court. So
if I can put a regulation volleyball court in that grant area or at the annex, then maybe so. If you want me to,
I'd just like to see that to try to fit that in. Because
understand you want to see it.
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want a volleyball court? I'll put a volleyball court there before the end of the year. But I don't think that's the vision we're talking about today. I think we're talking about what you want to do with that property.
Drew, if I can jump in for just a second,
Absolutely.
just for Jake's benefit, maybe. Jake, what Drew's talking about, which was before your time, was when we were shown some layouts. We were given 3 locations within this plan where a court could go. One is where the kayak storage is now that we've got a business that's leasing part of that.
Right.
And then there was a couple other options where they would almost turn it and run it parallel to the river along in the walk area that we have now. So
right. I believe that's across from the grant area that is now
if I'm
the
not
walk
mistaken,
area.
I think one of the other possible locations that Shalish might have mentioned was behind the Dunkin' Donuts. Was that not one of the? I think that was one of the locations as well.
So a volleyball court could go anywhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're actually not that big.
But people got to be able to get to it so it can be used.
Well, yeah, of course, but
lighting
a lit regulation volleyball court.
So I'm looking for vision on a 17-acre property. Not can we fit a volleyball court in.
Okay.
We'll find you a place for a volleyball court if that's the direction of council.
Good. That being said, yeah, the apartments would be my last even thing I'd consider. The entertainment part or something, or if somebody has an idea that isn't being done or they want to do, be willing to consider that too. But I want to see something there that's going to draw the people. The way you overlaid the Brandon Center, what was the parking cutout? Would that be adjacent to?
So here's parking the way it currently stands right
Oh.
out front of Brandon Center.
Okay,
And this is the Brandon Center over here because this property
I
hasn't
gotcha.
been bought yet.
That's the mower shop.
This is if you buy that property. This is if you do
Okay,
not.
okay.
Sorry, I didn't mention that. That is the mower property.
Okay.
This property is.
Yeah. I remembered seeing some lines in there.
This
but I couldn't
property is a
remember
little more motivated to sell than this
than
right
those
now.
two. And okay.
And
Yeah,
honestly, the other two are a better fit for the things going on in that area anyway.
yeah.
This or this.
The Dunkin' Donuts and the bike
Got
shop can
Keep
relate well to the
yeah,
area.
Yeah.
So keep in mind that if Brandon Center is very appealing, it's very beautiful. It could be a revenue generator.
It's expensive too.
It would add
Yeah.
millions of dollars of debt to the general fund to pay off the
Yes.
CRA.
Which we already have.
Oh, millions of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be millions more. No worries.
Yeah. Drew, what else?
I think that's it. I mean, I'm leaning the entertainment complex route if that's doable and possible.
I don't know. We'll add that to the ITN. The one-on-ones we had for the entertainment center was idea. If I recall, it was idea, not funding.
Yeah.
So so great idea. I don't know if it's feasible to get it financed. The apartments was idea and financing ready
Yes.
to go.
Yeah.
So.
Marilyn?
Well, I think something like a Brandon Center is appealing and it's a beautiful idea. My understanding is it's really not used very much. They scramble to really have it used. So I think the idea of what it would cost weighed against its usage, it's an impractical use there. We're talking about things for city center and what we may be able to do differently with that campus, and certainly with the expansion of the gymnasium and art house there. I think that makes more sense, and it's a little more centrally located to think about something Brandon Center-ish. So I would park that to the side. I am open to all the other possibilities. I think at the end of the day, we need some residential there. While I favor condo, I was persuaded that the demographics are different for ownership and that apartment rentals, high end, have a lot of usage. I also think a hotel probably would not have enough occupancy there. If there was something that was condo or apartment and possibly had some hotel rooms that they could, keep fully occupied, that would be something. I'm willing to look at something entertainment related, but I wonder long term, would it be popular enough to sustain attracting a lot of people? That's why if we could have, part of it for residents and then another piece entertainment, that would be good, but I don't think the property is that big. I would put out the ITN that people could look at residential and they come forward with a proposal, or entertainment and leave it open. And then what carries the day is what we think fits in terms of the concept that's presented, the ability to move forward with funding, and the timeline. Can we get this going quickly?
Right.
Scott?
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm going to offer some, I guess, maybe 30,000 foot recap of history from my perspective, and then maybe a little bit about my vision. I was always a big fan of the vision and the idea of Riverwalk. I can remember back in the early 90s, not just as an employee of the city, but as a homeowner and a taxpayer. My parents used to live across the river, and I can remember being over there having conversations, about what this vision was and what they could expect to see. My dad didn't get to see it in his lifetime. I hope I get to see it fulfilled in mine. But I would offer, so a couple of things that have been mentioned. Number one is, what's the marketability? I know Chase touched on it. Jake's talking a little bit about it. Drew is talking about some questions there. And the one thing that I would offer that I think one of the past roadblocks, and Maryland, having lived down there in an area, probably can really expand on this, but one of the past roadblocks that I think we've had with this project is strategy. There was a time when all this was going along and everybody that was involved was playing pretty darn well in the sandbox, and that fell apart. And what happened is people decided to turn this into a game of chess, and some strategic pieces were purchased up, and that caused a big lack of progress. In the recent years, and to some credit to Jake and his team, we have gained a different position recently. From a strategic standpoint, we now have acquired a lot of critical land. Even so, some of them were small pieces. It only took a really small piece to kind of change where we position ourselves. So I'm not willing to. I'm not going to agree, and I guess nobody's really suggesting this, but I'm not going to say that we've given this 20 years of effort toward a particular vision and it's never worked. The reality of it is we've never been in the position we're in now from a land ownership position to do some of these things. Timing has also been part of that equation. We've now, if digress for just a second, if you go down to that causeway this evening, if we were there right now, what you would see is an area that is full of people. It is thriving. There are people all over the place, walking, riding bikes, picnic lunches on the side. I mean, it's gorgeous. So the demand and the interest from our community is overwhelming. There's no question about that. My vision for this area has always been a vision of a destination, meaning this is a place for our residents to go and do different things, whether that's go for a walk, bike ride, enjoy a restaurant, do some shopping, all those different things. It's a destination site in my eyes. I would encourage us to maintain that as a vision, that it's a destination for our residents. Here, I have a concern about too much residential density. Keep in mind, councils before us have already approved 2 17-story condominiums in the heart of this area. In addition to that, you now have currently a high density residential project at our north city limits that's going on in the city of South Daytona. I do not see a good vision that adds more high density residential to this particular area. I think the amount that's already going on there in that very small area is enough. There's going to be some residential development between that railroad track area and US 1. We're already starting to see older residential homes being bought up, newer, modifications and homes being rebuilt, and all that kind of stuff is going on. It looks beautiful, by the way, looking great. So I think that there are already going to be some other residential things that take care of that stuff. I would caution us to not create too of a high density residential area in this small geographic location for lots of reasons. Number one, we're taking away that destination for our residents every time we do that. That now becomes private property, or private property that's not necessarily inviting to the community. So I would really caution us on that and suggest we maintain that. I think this particular area that Jake's asking us to focus on a lot tonight, the Herbert Street to the Dunlot, from US 1 to the river, if I understand where Jake's going with this. My vision, I would like to stick primarily with a mixed use theme. I would love to see a developer that we can market towards want to come in with a plan and take that over and run with it, and let the community decide what succeeds and doesn't. And we've seen that with other mixed use type stuff, whether that's the pavilion or whether, there's certain businesses that are going to come in and get tried. They're just not going to work. There's other ones sometimes we don't expect. They come in, they do fabulous, and they're standing room only. And I think that that's what you get out of that mixed use area. In terms of marketing that, I would say that if we're going to stick with this mixed use destination type vision and theme, we need to truly get outside of our marketing box a little bit. And that may be hiring somebody to market this vision. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that works, but it's not going to be done by the five of us on the dais and by staff. We only have so much reach. And I know there are private firms that do this. We've got really one last shot to get this right and establish this. I think we need to keep those kind of things in mind. And if we're going to do it, let's do that right. Now, the other vision I had was, okay, hey, listen, we've tried it. The marketability is not there. There's no interest. I don't know what the roadblocks are now, because certainly land strategy is not going to be a roadblock. What else could we do? The reason I asked Jake about the Brannan Center is it's incredibly successful. I read the New Smyrna annual report for last year, and it was noted in their annual report, it doubled in usage from the previous year. They have a tremendous waiting list for that facility to be booked. So the reason I thought that was good is that maintains a destination type project. Maryland brings up great points about City Center, but there's nothing that beats the water. There's nothing that beats that river view. And it's just something to think about. That I asked Jake, I said, can you superimpose that? Let's see, is there even enough land there? Well, I took that section halfway through and superimposed it myself, which I'm not nearly as good as Jake's team is. And I was actually surprised to see that something along those lines could fit there without taking up all of that. And so maybe there's something there where you could still have substantial mixed use, but also have a community type center like the Brannan Center that also accomplishes another thing, which is our lack of parking in the area. That's the one issue that we seem to always, every time we, get more and more into this vision, is where's all the parking going to be? And so something like that would be something to keep in mind. Yeah, I get it. We've talked about the CRA debt, but the reality with all of that is our residents have already paid for all of this. They have already rested this. There's not enough time left in that avenue to recoup all of that stuff. So that's really never going to happen. That's really unrealistic. So at this point, while it wouldn't have been something I would give serious consideration to maybe 10 years ago, at this point, depending on what the other options are, I think something like that is something we should give serious consideration to, because it truly does provide something back to the residents who have paid this for so long, who have made this investment for 20 plus years. It maintains it as a destination. It allows for more, other types of venues and events, and it continues to draw people into an area that can help support the other businesses and investments that have been made in the area. So those are my things. I guess if the one thing, and maybe Drew and some other folks have said it, the one thing I'm least interested in is more high density residential. I would much rather do a community type center that maintains a destination type look and vibe than to give in to any of that. It's just, I just don't see it. I've looked at it hard. I've listened to the pros and the cons, and it's one of those things. As soon as you allow a 300 or 400 unit or however many apartment complex in there, all of a sudden they do want to build those 217-story condominiums, and now we've completely lost the destination appeal, and we've taken it away from our residents. That's not an interest that I have in it. I would like to ask, and Jake and I've talked about this loosely, but I would like to see the numbers from the Brannan Center in New Smyrna. I really want to see, because I was kind of surprised at Marilyn's comment. That's not the comments that I've heard. I've been to several events down there, and I did note in the New Smyrna annual report last year that they specifically made it a point to point out the success of the Brannan Center and how the usage has doubled in 1 year. And so it is still a relatively new venue. It's very, very popular with weddings and retirement events and larger scale things and stuff like that. But what's really cool that I like about that is you have a huge area down there off the Brannan Center property, lots of businesses and specialty shops and pizza places and other places to go to. And every time I go to an event, that almost seems to be the natural thing, is when the event's over, well, let's meander down here. Let's walk down Canal Street. Let's go over, check out this
Go
business.
get a
and that.
pizza, go get a
Yeah, and so
sandwich.
that kind of goes to me with the destination of helping support these businesses that are going to be coming into the area, like fish, for example. You know, hopefully that will stay on track. I hope Joseph's listening. Man, we're excited for you. We're pulling for you. We'd really love to see some shovels in the ground, but I think that type of a facility also will help ensure the success of folks like that are looking to invest in that area, because there's going to be a huge draw for some of that. What else did I have here? And for now, I guess I'll yield, and I'll probably think of something else. But I just think that the marketing aspect of it, that's just something I don't know that we've ever truly given that 100% in the position we're in today. We're just in a different position.
Contracting with a commercial realtor to do the marketing and that kind of.
Yeah,
That's where
and
you're going with that?
I do have to give credit to Jake and his team. We were not in this position 4 years ago. No, when you looked at this, the strategy was horrific in our hand. We had no control. We had no pull. We had nothing. Now, if you look at I forget which file it is that Robin's got here in the package, but it's the one that shows the property color coded, where orange shows what does Port Orange own now. You look at that now and you see that entire area.
181 in your agenda packet.
Absolutely. You see that entire area now in orange, and you now see we control all of that on that corner. We control all of that along the water. That's huge to me. I mean, I just don't know that we've maximized that marketing to really see what's out there. I don't know that people know that anymore, you know? So
I think for me, the big problem I have is for every year we don't do something, it does cost the taxpayers money to sit on the sidelines and wait, because we're paying for debt service on property that continues to not be improved, continues to be not on the tax rolls, so it doesn't generate even basic revenue for land, much less for improvements. And I can't tell you what I can talk about trends. I know that certain mixed uses facilities around the country sit half filled. I don't think that all of them have the advantage of sitting on the water like this one does. But I would like to see something that maximizes our flexibility. I'm not fond of putting apartments there, but I don't rule it out either. At the end of the day, if we do everything we possibly can to attract what Scott calls a destination, I very much would like that. And if we cannot do that, then we need to fall down on other options. But I think we need to certainly need to maximize our potential for whatever that is. And certainly taking the first thing that comes along sounds good when nothing's come along in many a year. But I just remember 2012 talking about a drugstore going there. And I was not excited about that at all. And nobody was.
wrong kind of destination.
Well, yeah. And certainly that would have been yet another drugstore on Dunlawton. But at the same time, that we're coming out of the Great Recession, and we had a different outlook on a lot of things. And certainly our vision is always colored by the time that we're in. But I would like to give staff the maximum flexibility to see what we can attract. And the question that I would have is, why an ITN versus an RFP?
An ITN will expand the ability for things you haven't thought of to come to the table. RFP, I can send out an RFP for one of three things and go that way as well.
Okay.
What I want to be clear on, and you mentioned it, Mayor, but I want to be clear. You said maximize our potential. Our potential for what? For revenue? I've provided that. For entertainment, we've provided that. For parks, we've provided that. What potential do you want? Or do you just want me to open up the floodgates and say, here's our property, what can you do? You're going to get, it's going to be a line out the door. It's not a bad line, but it's going to be a line out the door. We can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And the issue is nobody knows what we want, including us, right? We got a lot of ideas.
Well, we got
when-
5 of them right here.
So when I went to the commercial guys that could market this for us, and showed them the property, and got my freebie, they said the same thing that we've heard from our one-on-ones, and that's mixed use isn't going to work unless you subsidize. So
Meaning what? Break that down for me.
subsidized would be half price rent, or we want mixed use, so we'll allow we'll pay you X amount of money to make sure that those small businesses get in the bottom floor, help pay for part of it. That was the understanding I had from the Splitsville type place.
Jake,
What are you going to give us?
Jake,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you repeat that? My computer froze. It froze as soon as
Sure.
you began answering Scott's question.
Yep. So subsidizing means paying or otherwise paying down some of the cost of a developer to mixed use to make it marketable, whether it be rent subsidizing or cost to build subsidizing, or here, take the land, build what you need to do, and it's on your own, or any deal like that. But it's subsidizing either the purchase price, the buying, or the renting in the future if you lease the land, to allow them to be able to make a living. So those are the items that the mixed use. When I talked to Buxton during the ICMA, that they said that's what it takes these days to get something like that off the ground. And oh, by the way, we do have 2, I don't want to call them blocking properties, but we have 2 properties that we'd still have to deal with out there in the corner.
You talking about the Herbert US 1 corner?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The 2 properties that are still privately owned. We can do without the Duncan, but the other 2 are could benefit us to have.
Sure, yeah. And I would just reiterate that position is so much better than what it looked like a few years ago. And actually, I think the mayor said it. He's right. The donut shop and the bicycle shop may merge and fit nicely into something that would fit there, especially with the attraction to the foot traffic, the bike traffic, the residential stuff that has already been approved in these areas.
And if you recall, the residential folks that came and talked to us said, you want mixed use, we can incorporate those businesses into consideration of mixed use.
Right.
And so that could happen with anybody.
The issue that I had, I'm sorry, Marilyn.
No, go ahead.
The issue that I had with that particular project, or very initial vision of it, was how much of the destination vision it takes away for our residents, to be quite honest. I mean, their thing was, well, we can still have some businesses that parallel Ridgewood. Great, but we lose the entire Riverwalk, which is what it's named, portion of that. It's now US 1 Walk. And then that was what I wrestled with that. I mean, I was like, I get it. Yeah, you can build your apartments beautiful, gated, and my residents can't go in there, and you take away all of that waterway access and view, but they can go into the shop on Ridgewood. Oh, that's kind of the draw, I would think. If I'm going down there, my family, my friends, that's the draw. We want to be as close to that water as we can. Maybe not in it, but be able to see it and enjoy it, and that whole theme. So, but that was my initial thing with that.
I get that, but let's not forget too that whether it be mixed use or whether it be apartments or whatever it is you do there, if there is a residential element to it, those are Port Orange residents as well.
They're not residents that have invested in this project today. They're future. They possibly could be future.
There are a lot of Port Orange residents that have not that are here now that have not invested in this
point. That's my point.
Marilyn, go ahead.
To follow up on something Scott just said, it was not my understanding that the proposal that was presented to us took over the shoreline access to Riverwalk. That remained very clearly within the city's scope, so that you could walk from the edge of Dunlawton down to Riverwalk Park.
You're correct.
So when you say that they're giving all that up, it would be a US 1 project. That really is a misnomer, because we haven't given that up. I guess here's what I would offer, given that, you know, we're sort of like the 5 blind men that all describe the elephant differently. We've left steak with, you know, 5 interpretations of what we want. And Councilman Stiltner's vision is certainly something that my husband had, I had, but at the end of the day, what changed Bob's view and actually mine, and that's why I'm willing to look at other things, is it's been 2 decades with no taxes. And I think we've got to be realistic. When we say Riverwalk is for the residents, we have Riverwalk Park. We're going to have a nice restaurant that they can walk to and park, fish. We'll have the shoreline. They also deserve a break on their taxes. That is also in their interest when we have other amenities. And so perhaps what might move us forward is understanding, or if council could talk about with an ITN, a time frame. Because quite honestly, I mean, we could open it up and say, we're open to hear all sorts of proposals. But what we stand firm on is we want to make something start and begin to happen within 24 months. And so we understand it's in the citizens' interest that we do something and not just wait for that field of dreams whenever that might occur, whether it's another decade or another 2 decades. It's our interest, and everybody's waiting for us to make the tough decision to get this going. So I would urge council that we start talking about a time frame to get something going.
I wholeheartedly concur when it comes to a time frame on what we want to do, and whatever it is we do with an ITN, putting it out and spelling out those time frames and our expectations. I think the picture of what it is that we want to put in that ITN, I'd say we've got 3.5 different viewpoints. And I think that, Jake, I want to give you flexibility, but I don't want to give you a mishmash either. And why don't we go around the room one more time? Chase, you started off first, and it's been a while since we've heard from you. Narrow down your scope just a little bit. First choice, second choice, third choice preferences.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. A lot of great comments, and you know, again, as a layman, I have my idea of what my preference, what I would like to see down there. But again, I don't make those decisions. The only thing that makes that decision is the market itself. Who is willing to take the risk and make the investment in there? I'm not interested in, and I think Marilyn said it well, waiting for the field of dreams to come here and passing on something else that somebody is willing to make the investment into this city. Somebody's willing to come in here, plant some roots down here. I'm going to welcome them with open arms. Particularly, we are, as I said before, we're over 2 decades into this. We have an opportunity to move forward with here. I've said before, we already have a park there. It's being well used. We have a walking path. It's being well used. And again, what was mentioned is the restaurant. So we have amenities down there that our residents are actively using and will continue to. And I believe that you know, suppose this project that is being brought forward thus far, the apartment complex, that will spur other opportunities for investment down here that our residents would enjoy also. So, you know, again, it comes back to it. I've got somebody that's willing to invest in Port Orange. I'm happy to welcome him with open arms.
Okay, so first choice, second choice, third choice, I just put you down as flexible.
That's what I have.
Yeah, that's
We
fine.
need a vision, so I'm trying to pin you down, of course.
I mean, again, that's not for me to decide.
Yes, it is for you to decide.
It's the markets that's going to decide, and it's the people that are willing to make the investment that comes in. I have things that I want. I don't want an apartment complex on a personal level as an elected
That's your
official.
vision, Chase.
I'm sorry.
Then that's your vision. That's
What do you want?
Yeah, this part of the agenda is purely vision, and you just, so what the mayor's saying is we kind of give a priority of our vision, and you're saying that that's not what you want. Then that would be your
Well, if
vision.
the market doesn't come to us
Right.
with our vision, then obviously we got to change our vision. But
Well, that's
what are
I'm
your
saying.
likes and
I guess
dislikes?
the point I'm saying is I don't want to pass on a guaranteed investment in the city for just something that I would rather have, but may never get. And if I pass up on something else, waiting for something that I particularly want, then I may miss out on that. And that's what
So
I'm
down
not
for flexible.
I'm not willing to gamble with the location. Is what I'm saying.
So I'm putting you down for flexible.
Go ahead, put me down for flexible. My position is
Okay. All right. Drew, your choices. First choice, second choice, third
Well,
choice.
the first choice would probably be something that would draw this as an entertainment complex, maybe perhaps offer up maybe a few restaurants, something like that. Some, you know, entertainment wise, a spot to go. I guess, you know, my second choice would probably be, and again, mixed use is difficult, but if that could work, then perhaps. And my last choice would probably be residential. I'm not opposed to that, but that would probably be my, like Scott says, you can't take away that, you don't want to overdevelop. And we know there's apartments going up the road there. And so it just, I'm not saying no, don't even try. I'm saying that's going to be like the last thing I would consider, or my third choice, if you will.
Okay. And I wanted to throw this thought out too, because I meant to mention it before. Residential density of some sort, whether it be condos, whether it be the apartments that are being built in South Daytona, or if we do something, not only we're talking about Riverwalk, but what we also have to do with what we have in Riverwalk, whether it be complementary businesses or any of those things, has the opportunity to attract businesses to invest in the Ridgewood corridor outside of Riverwalk as well. So we have the ability to create something that, and this is my hope. Certainly, you take a look at the shopping center across the street. You know, that it's been filled with, they have had occupants in all those places, but nothing grand, nothing great. They all pay rent.
Yeah.
But they've had no reason to reinvest in that shopping plaza there at Dunlawton and Ridgewood, that southwest corner there, because they're content with being what they are, and the demographics of the area need to change for them to think about that.
To make that investment.
So we have the opportunity here to spur other investment up and down the corridor with what we think. Let me just throw that out there, then I will get to my turn. But Scott, you're up. Your likes and dislikes.
Yeah. So first, real quick, to Marilyn's point is, and you're right, Marilyn. I wasn't trying to infer that the walkway along the water would be. I was talking about the property in question that we're talking about for the particular agenda item. That would be completely obstructed and taken away for public access with that apartment plan. The one thing that we haven't talked about, maybe Jake, you could touch on this, is since we have come into this strategic position in the last couple of years, what exactly have we done to market the property? Because I'm not really aware that we've done anything outside of, the occasional circles that we all have. But I mean, what have we done to try to market this to a vision? Because I think that's what we're here for now, right? Because I don't think we really have.
So,
per se, right?
so
I
I've,
know there's a sign on the corner, but
yeah, no, it didn't used to belong to us, right?
Yeah.
So, I've traveled to, Atlanta. Tim has gone to a few conferences and tried to market it, plus my, marketing and inquisitions, if you will, at ICMA on possibilities. We've talked to developers in the area, and those are the people that have come to you with the one-on-ones, but not a lot of takers because of the blocking properties in the past, and now the existing properties in the that they're there now. Some people are willing to deal with them. Some people are not. We can go out and spend money to do the same thing. Somebody will come. I don't think the answers are going to be any different, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of money marketing. I just need to think we need to spend a lot of time telling people what we want, because you've seen what we've done tonight, and 5 of us want something different, and I can't keep on bringing people. It's kind of like the vision of city center. I can't keep on bringing these ideas and go, oh, that looks great. Oh, that looks great. We eventually got to say, let's go. So we have an ITN ready to go, but I need to know what to put in that ITN, or put nothing in there and go, bring it. But what I don't want is to have 50 people outside the door with all these great ideas and go, well, that sounds great. That sounds great. That sounds great. That sounds great. And then go, yeah, no. So I need you all to resolve to move forward. You're talking about a timeline. I'm ready to roll. We can get these ITN responses back by the end of the year and make a decision and then move forward. Or I can sit here and languish and look at the property and let it bother us for another 20 years and pay that debt. But I want to move forward. I don't want to move forward with something stupid. And I don't want to move forward with something that we all like that isn't going to work if we're not willing to subsidize it and make it work. If that's what we want, you can put whatever you want in there as long as you subsidize it and make it work.
All right, so let me give the mayor my vision here, because I think
No, I was gonna make you.
yeah, I know you are. I know you are. The last thing I would offer to that point is, we all keep saying it's been 20 years, it's been 20 years. It has not been 20 years that we've been in this position. This is the first time we've been in this position, and we have not truly marketed this towards a particular vision. So just keep that in mind. Mayor, so my first thing would be, my first preference, number one, would be, I'd love to see some type of a cohesive mixed-use destination location. Shops, restaurants, all that type of stuff. The residents can have a place to go and enjoy that whole downtown Riverwalk theme, atmosphere, that type of thing. That would be my first. That would be my vision, number one, my priority. My second would be, is if that's not feasible, I would like to stay on the destination mindset. Consider a Brannon Center type of a project, which probably would still leave some area for private business and maybe not even mixed use, just private businesses that can go in and around those areas. And residential would absolutely be my last thing that I probably wouldn't consider it at all, because I just think that it's just too much residential density. Because I know we're talking about an apartment complex. Well, apartment complex right next to 2 high-rise condos. Well, we may never see that in our time on the dais. It's planned for and it is zoned for, and that's not something that I think would be a good fit in that area at all. How's that?
It is interesting. Now, not bad. Now, it is
Go.
interesting that 10 years ago, a third condominium building would have been built right where we have our park right now.
Exactly right.
So things do change. Marilyn,
Flexible.
one word. If I had my druthers, first and foremost, I would love to see some kind of mixed use And when I say mixed use, it could be residential / commercial. Certainly my second choice would be some kind of entertainment facility. I would not discount housing. And granted, it doesn't excite me. There's nothing exciting about it, but I would not discount it because at the end of the day, if we can't get any of the first and second choices, I will let the market dictate what what goes there. And if that's what the market will dictate, then so be it. But I would rather us take a swing at something better first.
So you all have talked a little bit around some things that
Jake.
might be an option. Go ahead.
Just to help you out, when the mayor, for me, mixed use would include entertainment, if that helps you. So
Got it.
I wouldn't break that up. So
Well, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
So one of the options that has been discussed before, but not really directly today, is a public-private venture where you have a Brandon Center-esque building with rental property or mixed use below, that if your vision for mixed use doesn't come to fruition, you still have a pretty nice city building that can then be utilized for, like, my office. I'm just, what are you laughing at, Marilyn?
I'll put that down.
With Matt Jones.
His
But-
weekend office.
But think about it, you know, we've been talking about space and things of that nature. I'm not saying it's going to be a city hall annex, but if it's an epic fail, it's not a total loss and you have some city property, but you can rent it to business, you can rent it to commercial, you can rent it to retail, and if all else fails, you have some options on how you can use that property. So that's a consideration as well.
I don't think anybody objects to that outright either, do they?
No.
I don't see any objections.
That would be a lot of flexibility.
I think we've been wishy-washy enough between all five of us that you've got a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I appreciate your vision on that. So we'll get an ITN out. We'll show council before we send it out, obviously, to make sure it meets your needs. I'm sure it'll be a fruitful discussion, and then we'll go out to ITN. The timeline is that we're in some unprecedented times right now, but Tim and the team will work to get the ITN out and set some parameters for that ITN. Get something back. We'll have to make a decision pretty quick. I hope to get it back before the end of the year, but we're looking at November, December, depending on how everything goes here. And then we'll make a run for it. In the meantime, we'll keep an eye on those properties, and I'll try to work through that grant property to see if we have any wiggle room on that with the FCT.
Okay.
Matt, anything to add?
All right,
That's it.
let's get this show on the road. City attorney comments. You want to step up to the microphone and say that? No, you don't have to. City manager comments.
2 items. First of all, I do have Safer Grant tonight, right?
Yes, you do.
It's on the list. So the fire chief and the fire department has always looked at the Safer Grant every year. The Safer Grant is a 75% grant for firefighters for 3 years, and then we start paying full time. The Safer Grant is up right now. If we have to apply, if we want to apply, we have to apply soon. If we apply, then and don't accept the grant, if we should get it, then it's kind of you get blacklisted if you don't use it. And I believe we've done that before. So or a sister city has done it at least. So the Safer Grant is up right now. It kind of at least it caught me by surprise. But I would like to ask you if you would like to entertain at all hiring 3 additional firefighters to make our ambulance 24/7, 365 full time, and get those members paid for 75% for 3 years. Having said that, I do not think that those firefighters would be 100% paid for by ambulance revenue in the long term. They might under the SAFER grant, but after 3 years, that total cost of those 3 firefighters would be borne on us. Now, some of the revenue would offset, but right now we're at 1 ambulance, and we would go 24/7, 365.
Yeah. Speaking of revenue on that, where do we stand on revenue as of April 1st?
I don't have that information
Okay.
right handy, but I can get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, because before we start talking
Much
about
more than we anticipated.
that, okay.
Much more than we anticipated last year, like quadruple
Oh,
as
okay.
far as
So,
budget.
well, I mean, that's
But
good news
what were
in
we
itself.
at, Don, last
Black
weekly?
Black ink, not red ink.
I realize that, but the revenue he just said is 3 to 4 times as much as we anticipated, and we went with that. I'd definitely be interested in the SAFER grant, and moving transport forward to 24/7 full time for sure.
Scott, your thoughts?
I would agree.
Marilyn, your thoughts?
I read the numbers every week. I'm not sure the demand is there for 24/7. And I'm reluctant to add a full complement that we're then going to have to bear the costs in 3 years. I don't think we fully understand what the impact is going to be long-term of something like COVID. So I am not in favor of doing the grant right now. I certainly understand that there's usefulness, but I'm not convinced the demand is there to go 24/7. And I don't want to pick up a long-term burden right now.
Jace, your thoughts?
I'll let Marilyn's comments speak for me. I agree. I'm not in a position where I want to move forward either.
I think hey, you guys did this to me last year.
But before you,
Feels familiar.
let me get one. So I'm starting to get information in now. Just under $370,000 for this year on ambulance. That's a 12-hour, 7-day-a-week shift, or shift.
Well, and if I remember correctly, we started at 5 days a week and added the and went to 7. And we're at how much?
And for a year, about 370, but for fiscal year 20, we're about 215 right now, 215,000.
See, my problem is that we're doing ambulance 12 hours a day, but because the way our labor agreement is structured, we're scheduling the people who run those ambulance for a 24-hour shift. So if I'm going to have somebody on a 24-hour shift, why not going to just run the ambulance for 24 hours? They're there. Yep. So if it was just simply about staffing for the hours of operation at peak load, which we are not doing, and we don't have the ability to do that under a current labor agreement, then I can't look at the business model the same way.
So we can't burn out the crews. That's why we need the 3 extra guys if we go 24/7, 365.
And I get that. I'm just looking at if we're going to schedule somebody for a 24-hour shift and run an ambulance for 12 of it, I'd rather run the ambulance for 24.
Well, our labor agreements, I think, are up this year. And are we saying we're not going to be efficient? We're not going to do dynamic staffing or peak load staffing? I understand the current situation is not that we are, but my response is that doesn't mean we're not going to be there and should be looking at that. I mean, last council meeting, Councilman Bastian raised the issue, would COVID-19 result in layoffs of staff? And here we are talking about adding some because we think it's free money for 3 years. You got to look at the big picture. And the big picture for me is we're going to be tying ourselves for the length of their tenure. And it's not to say that they don't do an important job, but I'm not willing to bite that bullet right now and make a long-term obligation to our taxes.
I look at it the other way. Our amount of emergencies are going to increase. I'm certain of it. More elderly population, larger population in general, creates more emergency medical calls, whether it be a BLS or an ALS call. And, you know, I did that job for nearly 26 years, and it, you know, there are plenty of calls at night that we're missing out on. That, you know, people don't just get sick or ill in peak hours. They get sick and ill 24 hours a day. And we need to be there to not just show up and, you know, have evac or another ambulance company come into our city and transport them. And that, I've seen multiple different cities. Before we went to 7 days a week, I've seen multiple different cities in our city transporting our residents.
And I tell you what, the one thing that this administration has done a terrific job of working with the county on call protocols. Because if we did this program with the protocols that were in place for answering calls with the county, that wouldn't have worked. This, I never would have said yes to it because it never would have worked. And if that were to change and it were to revert, and I don't think the county would because they'd be foolish to do that, we basically need to answer one call at night. And we got people on, and I'm not looking at this as a static situation because I also know that we're growing.
So, yeah, so this is
We're going
definitely,
to grow anyway.
this is definitely,
Absolutely.
this is I want to make sure I'm clear that this isn't a revenue play. This is a service
Absolutely.
play. I can't guarantee additional revenue.
Yeah.
Jake, just to that comment, so I have seen 30 years of the city taking advantage of grant opportunities like this, and especially ones like this. I've never seen one turn out to be a bad play for us because we've seen a steady growth and a steady demand and a steady increase. So I think it's realistic to look and say, even with what we've got going on in the very, very short term, we're going to see continued growth, continued development, continued need, all that stuff. That it would be really unrealistic for us not to think that's going to occur. And so, from a vision perspective and an anticipatory perspective, the need's going to be there, and to take advantage of a grant that substantially helps get that need fulfilled,
And the city's adding an emergency room.
right, and take some of that cost off of our residents. It's
Very, very true. Having said that, the SAFER grant is available every year. We
Right.
have not applied
do
for
we
it
know
since
that
I.
it's guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed when it
Right,
comes to grants.
exactly, right.
For the past 5 years, since I've been here, we have not done a SAFER grant. However, and you know, I look at this as it's a sale. I got to buy it because it's on sale. That's not how that's not how I buy things, except for maybe cars. But that's not how we purchase items. Having said that, we have talked about increasing our fire department force by 3 for 2 years now with this ambulance full-time thing has been a 2-year, you know, let's do a beta. Let's see how it works. Let's see how we're doing. Well, we're past that. We're past beta. We went from 12.5 to 12.7. Now the next question is, do we want to go 24/7? And if the answer is yes, then yes, the SAFER grant to pay for part of these guys is probably a smart move, knowing that in 3 years we got 2 options. I think we can lay them off if we don't need them, or we accept them if they're still there. But keep in mind, these will be 3 of our teammates at that point.
SAFER grants don't work the way they used to, where you were locked in
Right.
for a period of time afterwards. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
And attrition usually is on your side anyway.
Well, yeah, in 2010, that was different. That council, none of us were on it, said no to a SAFER grant. They ended up expanding the force anyway. But but the reason why they said no was because they were locked into that staffing level for 5 years after the grant ended. In this case, we're not. And if we were, then I would probably feel a little differently. But since we're not, take a whack at it.
Okay, we'll apply for the grant.
What else you got?
Quick COVID update. We gave a lot of it earlier today, but my goal, absent your direction or displeasure, is to try to get as many businesses open within the confines of the governor's phase 1 reopening that are possible, and the 2 or 3 things that we're demanding or using as the bellwether, if you will, is social distancing. Can you keep everybody 6 feet apart? Number 1. 25% capacity. If you can keep 25% capacity, that seems to be the governor's comfort level with that, which is fine. It's my comfort level too. And then 2, for restaurants, we want to maximize their outdoor seating where they can, to get them moving as far and fast forward as we can. And oh, by the way, that outdoor, I would think that would extend to somebody else as well that could benefit from outdoor. What we aren't doing to date is allowing home businesses to do business outdoors in their residence. That wasn't something they could do before. They couldn't, for the most part, operate in and out of their homes, so we're not allowing that at this point. So those are the things that have come to my attention, and those are the things we've acted on. So that brings you up to speed on that. As far as city services go, we are gearing up to open. We are gearing up to open as early as May 11th. But the consensus among the city managers was, at least on Monday, that the 16th looks more like well, it would be the 18th, right? Monday. So that's kind of what they're looking at. It's not really relevant to me when we open the doors, because 98% of what we do, we're already doing. It is the convenience of opening up the doors of City Hall and being able to walk in and pay your bill that you can do outside already. So I will probably go with the flow with that, with city services. I talked to Deb Connors from the chamber. She had a little family thing that sidetracked her, but I have the draft reopening plan for businesses that the chamber and the task force or the working group worked on. I'm going to smooth that up tonight or tomorrow morning, and we'll get that out to the chamber, and it'll be on our website as well to provide additional guidance to any businesses that may have questions. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Committee reports. Volusia County School Board Oversight Committee meets once a year. I have in your agenda packet. It usually meets in January. Sarah Lee Morrissey scheduled it for March this year, and we got it right in before the COVID shutdown. If we do manage with all of everything going on to have a workshop with the school board this year, or at any point in time, the things that I wanted to point out is that if you take a look at our schools in Port Orange, we're at or above capacity on all but one. Cypress Creek 108%, Horizon 111%, Port Orange 116% of capacity, Spruce Creek Elementary 104% of capacity, Sugar Mill 102% of capacity, Sweetwater at 90% capacity. Our middle schools 114% and 106% of capacity. Our high schools 108% of capacity at Atlantic, 120% of capacity at Spruce Creek. And there are no plans, according to the retiring, thank God, Sarah Lee Morrissey, to do anything about adding schools or adding to capacity in the Port Orange area. Did I opine on her? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you saw that and that you have those figures, so that if any point in time you have a conversation with anybody on the school board, that probably is a very relevant question for us to ask. River to CTPO.
They're still working on, the primary focus has basically just been working on the long-range planning, so nothing substantial to report.
Okay. General Employees Pension Board.
We're hoping for long-range progress. Actually, we did have a little bit. Yeah, we actually did have a little bit of positive news, I would say, right? I mean, you know, so some stuff that's happened in the market is obviously very concerning, but it turned out not quite as bad as they anticipated. So I guess if you can kind of find the silver lining there, but you know, basically what we're talking about right now is a little bit of, we got to wait and see, and reminding everybody that these are very long-term plans. We've seen these issues before, and you just got to work through them, and working on that right now. So,
Okay. With that, any other business coming before us this evening? Hey, we get to do it again in 2 weeks, everybody. Have a good night.